So if we look at long-term holder supply, in the 2021 peak, now, before I do that, let me just flag here that the blue price is everything that is long-term holders. And we can see here that in late December, it turns red. That's all the short-term holders. So ignore everything that we're talking about pretty much from the start of the year. So back to 2021, we're rallying up from like 10K, sailors started buying, COVID's happened, we're at 20K, and next thing you know, we're at 64. 2-3 months later, and we just teleport. The market barely slowed down. We had one correction, just straight up, rounded top. Long-term holder supply was just depleting massively, right? We went from 12.5 million down to about 10.3 million. So that's 2.2 million or thereabouts worth of Bitcoin that was spent into that rally. This is just, some of it's going to be people who aren't actually selling, a lot of it selling. Similar in 2017, right? From 10 million Bitcoin all the way down to 6.9, let's just say 7. So about 3 million Bitcoin. So we're talking about 2.2, 3 million. Now, this current all-time high, as you can see, even this one, when we broke up here in 2024, we start rallying towards a new all-time high, long-term holders start selling. They then go through this chop solidation period, a bunch of coins migrate, and this is important. They migrate across that 5-month threshold. So a really important take here is that when long-term holder supply decreases, it is instantaneous. A coin goes from long-term into short-term on the day that it is spent and transacted. It doesn't return to long-term holder status until it's waited for 5 months. So when long-term holder supply is increasing like it did in the back half of 2024, that is actually showing that the spending has slowed so much that the coins that are migrating in, it's telling us what happened 5 months ago, but there's also no spending. So it's kind of a double whammy. We're seeing there's very little spending going on, so that's sell side, but we're also seeing that people who bought 5 months ago are still holding on. Now, just kind of connecting these dots again, 2021, massive sell side into the top, and then we had the correction. All the long-term holders sold to new speculators, and then they got rinsed, $70 billion in unrealized losses. In our current cycle, we had a huge amount of distribution, right? On the way up, we saw all of this distribution go from 14.3 million down to 12.5. So that's what, 1.7 or something like that. 14.5 million down to 13. So there's another 1.5. So we've had pretty massive, like, let's just say 3 million Bitcoin worth in net sell side on both of these rallies. And here we are at new all-time highs. Usually we see long-term holders ramping up their spending. We should, in theory, be watching this thing forming a lower high, and maybe it will in the near term and start reversing, but it's actually climbing. And the reason why is that the end of this year, these are people who bought on the first rally up at 100K, and they're still holding. Now, let's go back to this connection here. They're still holding, and they went down not quite as much. This was a 52% correction. This was a 32% correction. But the unrealized losses were just as bad. The financial damage in dollar terms was just as bad. The reason why I want to flag this, think about the kind of people who went through this. They bought at 100K. They were reminded very, very quickly, you could have bought the top. You probably bought the top. In fact, now you're down to 15%. Actually, no, you're down 32%. We're at 75K. Welcome to the bear market. Sucked in. And then they still held. And then we've rallied from that 75K bottom, right? We're up about 50%, and they're still holding. So there is a huge amount of coins that just went through this whole volatility, and they didn't blink. Now, this is a similar chart, but we're looking at it as a percent of the overall total circulating supply. I mean, it's up over 70%, 17.5%. So it's really ripping to the upside. And you can see that the all-time high here was 74% of the supply. Now, I'll show you in a chart coming up. If the hodlers keep hodling, in about 2 months' time, there's about 2.2 million Bitcoin sitting in the 3-month to 5-month bucket, soon to transition across that 5 months. So in the next 2 months, if they keep hodling, this thing is going to moon to a new all-time high by some magnitude, right? It'll be up over 75%. If that 2 million Bitcoin actually do migrate across, now we will see selling, we'll probably see that not quite get to that level, but if you think about this, I hate to use the term supply squeeze, but just for ease of access, there's a lot of coins that people are just saying, no, I'm not spending. I'm going to hang on to these things. And this is a little bit different. This all-time high, I would expect this to have slowed down significantly, and we're just not yet seeing it, which is pretty cool. all things being considered. Now, on a 30-day basis, this is how many coins have migrated across that threshold.